Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
Missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and the mother has went through a wall, came home, now they can't find her.
Chad, where are Lori's kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave. Once I told a lie, then I told my family. I had to keep lying.
McSherman is a demon.
We haven't cleared anybody.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We have a lot to get into. I know there's been a lot of coverage on this case and it's about to go to trial. So I feel like this is the perfect time to kind of hop in and fall down this rabbit hole. I've been down this rabbit hole for the past week and a half about, and I feel like the way that I lean right now is very unbiased. I feel it could go either way. So the defense obviously has their theory, prosecution has their theory, and I feel like it's one of those cases where at this moment before trial, like I said, it can go either way with the theories. So it's a good time to kind of jump in. For those who don't know it, we're going to kind of cover the basics. So I know that there's some people in chat who have covered or researched it, and there's some who haven't. So please, feel free to correct me on anything that I get wrong. Like I said, I kind of just started to kind of look into this stuff, and it's just unbelievable. I've never seen anything like this case. As you guys know, I have a federal agent close to me who I can kind of source or discuss these type of cases with briefly, because obviously he's very busy, and he is stunned by the way that evidence was collected and the way that a police officer's death was treated. And it's just unbelievable. So I want to know. Thank you so much. Oh yeah, Johnny, this is the sweatshirt that my husband got me from Seattle. He just got back. That's why I wasn't live last week. Just didn't have somebody here to help me with the little one. So thank you guys so much for being here. I'm sort of out of the algorithm since I haven't really been live. So if you could just hit that thumbs up, it would really help me out a lot and just get more people into our chat and kind of discuss this stuff with. So hit that like button if you haven't. I've got notes to go through. I have timestamps of a timeline and a who's who. So we're just going to get right into it. If you guys have heard of this case, press 1. If you've never heard of this case, press 2. I just want to get like a feel for where you guys are at in chat. So I think we're going to start off with, I just want to share my screen. Sleuthy Goosey, for those who don't know, she is a web sleuth. She does a lot of work on Twitter. She has come up with a timeline that is very elaborate. And I was thinking, if you guys were following this live stream or even on replay, feel free to follow her on Twitter, and you can kind of follow. I'll show her timeline too real quick. You can kind of follow her timeline while we go through this too. So Criminality has read through this timeline. I'm not going to sit here and read through it all, but I think that it's a good reference in case you want to kind of look at stuff while we're live or those on replay. If something stands out to you, check out her timeline. Definitely good information there as always. So let's see. Of course, I'm going to source Court TV. There is a lot of people covering this case, and I have followed, just regular people who like to talk true crime. I've followed legal experts. I've followed law enforcement people that are covering this case. Melanie Little, if you guys don't know her channel, it's called Attorney Melanie Little. She's been covering this case very extensively. I have her segment on Court TV when she was on, so I want to kind of reference her knowledge in the case as well through that segment. And yeah, I just appreciate you guys all being here. Yes, Melanie does have a lot of good content on this, and she's just very smart. So I definitely love sourcing her. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're just going to kind of get into the basics and talk about what this case is. So in case you don't know, this would be a good live stream to kind of jump on. And it looks like there's an equal amount of ones and twos in chat. So it seems like people are on board. Other people don't know. I'm telling you, if you don't know this case and you like true crime and you like following trials, this is the trial to watch, because it's just, it's one of those ones where it's like a puzzle. Like I said, I could see the theories going, the prosecution's theory or the defense's theory. And there's just a lot of jaw-dropping things in this case that really makes you question, people who are in authority. And it's stunning, pretty much. So let's start with the timeline that Court TV came out with. Of course, this is not, and they've been covering it for a while. So this isn't anything new, but it does give the basic timeline. Then I've put together my own clip collection. As you guys know, I like to kind of clip things and add in my own visuals as well. So you'll see visuals that are just out there on Google that reference the case and the crime scene. And it will obviously have experts' opinions from Court TV, including Joseph Scott Morgan, because the forensics in this case are going to be key. And it comes down to a lot of digital forensics. And obviously there is DNA and stuff like that involved, physics involved. Right now, I will say the medical examiner's determination on this was undetermined. So as you guys know, it can be murder, accident, they did it to themselves, or undetermined. And that is where the medical examiner fell with this case. So once those medical examiner experts give their side for the prosecution and for the defense on the stand coming up, that is going to be a testimony that I definitely want to, study and tune into, because that's going to be key in figuring out what really happened here. So John O'Keefe was a police officer in Boston for 16 years, 46 years old. He was dating Karen Read. They dated previously in their 20s and then reconnected later in life. She was 42 at the time of this crime. I believe now she's 44. Just looking at the basics on my notes. We'll get into my notes as I play this. So let's just get this. Undetermined is a rare status to give. It's, interesting too, because even though it was given as undetermined, prosecution upped her charges and, is charging her with, the murder of her boyfriend. So they're alleging that the night that they went out bar hopping, a fight broke out between the two. She gets, mad at him when he gets out of the car, puts it in reverse, and purposely, vindictively, hits him with her vehicle, which is a black SUV Lexus, very big vehicle. It was on a snowy night. And and there's a lot of people who are very divided in this case, which is why I think it's good that I'm kind of like undetermined at this, kind of like the medical examiner. I'm undetermined. Like I said, I could definitely see Karen Read being innocent, and I could see the defense's theory 100% being accurate. Once they give more info, I could see me maybe being swayed to the prosecution, depending on what those experts say. Taking away my feelings and emotions in this case, what are the facts? And, right now, the facts don't really favor the prosecution. So as much as I say I'm in the middle, it's just a lot of troubling insight in this case that it really makes you think like, wow, it's totally plausible that there is this cover up and that Karen Read is being framed. I could totally see it going in that direction. So without further ado, let's get into the timeline. Then we'll get into the clips that I've put together. Then we'll get into more stuff from Court TV. So let's just get into it all, guys. And thanks for being here.
We get to the end of January.
Okay, so let's go to the end of January and let's talk about that night. We've got a little bit of a timeline I want to walk through with you to try to get a better understanding of what
seemed that their relationship had gotten a little bit rocky. There was a fight around. The first thing that sticks out to me is
This is interesting because they're hanging. About 15 minutes later, they arrive at the Waterfall Bar and Grill, also in C.F. McCarty's. And about 15 minutes later, they arrive at the Waterfall Bar and Grill, also in Canton. This is interesting because they're hanging out in Canton. He's a Boston police officer, but where all this is happening, it's not Boston, and it's not a case that was investigated by officers that work with John O'Keefe.
No, this is your suburbs outside of it. But I do know that up in this community, the law enforcement group is not a huge, widespread thing. I mean, they have a lot of officers up there, but you know how small these, law enforcement can be, and everybody kind of does know everybody. I can't wrap my head around the fact that a bunch of police officers were around and allowed someone who may or may not have been absolutely hammered get behind the wheel of a car. That still sticks out to me as being an issue. It also calls into question for me whether or not Karen Read is a reliable narrator of her own story that night, assuming she was intoxicated.
Yeah. Like, how intoxicated was she? What does she remember? What does she not remember? But again, the charges here are that she did it intentionally, that this was no accident. 12:14 a.m., John O'Keefe texts Jennifer McCabe, "Where to?" Jennifer replies with the address of her brother's house on Fairview Road, which is where the...
Okay, so far they are bar hopping. They are deciding to go to an after party at another cop's house. So this cop, his name is Brian Alberts. He knows them, but at the same time, John O'Keefe is not really close friends with Brian. He's more friends with Brian's sister-in-law, who is at that party as well. So keep that in mind. The owner of the house, the person who he's going over to see, yes, he's also a cop, but John doesn't really know him that well.
This so-called after party is going to take place. 12:31 a.m., Jennifer McCabe texts John O'Keefe, "Hello," when he sees what she believes is Karen Read's black SUV at the residence. This is interesting. So Jennifer McCabe, who's inside the house, I guess perhaps or apparently sees Karen Read and John O'Keefe, at least the car, arrive in front of this home.
So Jennifer McCabe is the owner of the home's sister-in-law, who texts John as they're pulling up. And remember, the prosecution is saying John never made it into the house. So that's why I find this hello text kind of interesting, because, it says here that they see them pull up and, they're saying hello, and at the same time, Karen is saying, "I watched him go into the door. I watched him walk into the residence." Prosecution is saying, no, absolutely not. He never made it inside. Then that brings us to the phone data. So let me make sure I get this correct with my notes. So John's Apple Health recorded his movements that night. It showed him in the area of Brian Albert's home. It said he took multiple steps at elevation, equivalent to climbing 3 flights of stairs. Oddly enough, there are 3 flights of stairs in the Albert home. If he was hit by Karen before making it into the house, how were those steps calculated on his Apple Health device? All right, so keep that in mind. Someone sees him pull up. Jennifer McCabe, her statements are key. A lot of this case has a lot of hearsay involved. Like Karen said this to us and Karen did this and we noticed this. And it's very much a lot of hearsay. And also keep in mind, these are police officers. These are people who, know people who are investigating the case, which is the other issue. Not only that, but the house across the street had CCTV footage, and the person who lives across the street from that home there on the screen is a Canton deputy police chief. All right. He had a Ring camera, but he claims nothing was found on it and it was never requested. So this is what I mean by whether or not she's innocent or guilty. The way that this police officer's death was investigated and treated is just a sham. It's just, they should be ashamed of themselves. Even at one point, they're collecting blood on the scene in red Solo cups. Okay, so not a sterile device where you can collect evidence from. They're using red Solo cups to collect evidence for this 16-year veteran on the police force's death.
That's exactly right. And another text that comes through around this time from Jennifer McCabe is basically giving them directions as to where in the driveway to park. I think it's something along the lines of, pull behind my car or pull behind this vehicle. So presumably the people in the house see that they're there in the driveway looking to park, and the people in the car presumably know that this is the house that they're going to because they were directed where to park. This moment in the timeline is where everything goes off the rails for me, Vinny, because the people in the house say that he never came inside to this party. They never saw him. And then you have Karen Read saying he got out of the car, went in the house, never came back and never answered her phone calls. I can't believe that no one went outside ever to see where he was. If you see me pull up, Vin, outside of your house and you're expecting me to come inside and all of a sudden I disappear and my car disappears, wouldn't you be concerned? And on the same token, if you and I are driving to a party and you get out of the car to go inside and you don't answer my phone calls or come back to the car, I'm going to get concerned. It didn't seem like anyone was concerned until tomorrow, till the next day.
Till the next day. And so let's get to 12.
The other thing too is it had just started snowing. The storm hadn't really come down at that moment when he's dropped off. But just from someone who lives in the Northeast, I'm not in Boston, but I am in New York. And I just know, when you see a storm coming or if it's snowing out, you're kind of looking out and like checking the weather. I guess there were 13 people at this after party, many of them which left. So imagine that. I think they said around 11 people left the party that night. None of them see John laying in the front. So that's something important to keep in mind too. Not only that, but we have the snowplow guy who claims he never saw a body, when he's doing his plowing work. So just keep that in mind. And thank you everyone for joining. Johnny is handing out tacos for Taco Tuesday. So just relax and kick back. Hello. Yeah, let's unpack that. Thank you for being here. So yeah, the whole weather aspect I think is interesting too. Just, you are always kind of watching the storm or how it's coming down. And if he was there outside laying there this whole time, I find it very interesting that there's 13 people inside, one of which is texting hello and telling them where to park as they're, arriving. And no one sees this alleged car, SUV, huge SUV, hit John and him laying there.
40 a.m., Jennifer McCabe texts John O'Keefe, pull up behind me, and says she then saw the black SUV move from its initial place to the left side of the property. This is very specific. 12:45 a.m., Jennifer McCabe texts John O'Keefe, hello, and then observed the black SUV drive away. So if she's seeing it drive away, does she see it run John O'Keefe over?
And that's a very, simple question. If it's what the state is alleging, then she should be the eyewitness who witnessed her, put it in reverse. And they're claiming that they got in an argument. They're also claiming that she was going 24 miles per hour. So how is it that these people are watching them arrive, texting them and all that? And it just is like, there's no one who said like, yes, I saw it take place. Like, it's just kind of, it's not making sense, the prosecution's theory, in my mind, at this point.
She's seeing a lot, but she's not seeing that.
She's seeing a lot. She doesn't see John O'Keefe get run over, but where she claims she sees the SUV sort of back up and move is between a fire hydrant and a flagpole, which is what she says. And that will become very important when they find his body the next day near this fire hydrant and flagpole. So she might have actually witnessed him getting run over if he was in fact run over in that moment, and just not have been able to see the moment of impact because of how she was looking out the window and how the car was placed. And
I personally find that hard to believe, because when you put your car in reverse, your reverse lights turn on. If you, are stopping, they're claiming she hit him and then drives away. So there's brakes that are being, brake lights and all that. So no one saw, like with the red lights, him being hit. Also, apparently the feds have gotten involved, and the feds are claiming that in their investigation, a car didn't hit him. So at this point, what we have so far is a medical examiner who says the results of the autopsy is undetermined. We have feds that are involved that are saying a car didn't hit him. And we have a prosecution claiming that there's an argument that breaks out between the couple, and she's so mad at him, she decides to hit him. She's drunk. And mind you, she knows that there's people in that house. So we're supposed to believe that a woman is so mad and so intoxicated that she loses all senses and decides, I'm going to hit him in front of this whole house of people at this party. Like, I just find that also hard to believe, no matter, and mind you, there is nothing that I've seen come up about past DV in this relationship. There's nothing that says that, she was ever aggressive towards him ever in their relationship. So that, I think, is also noteworthy.
As you said, my first guess was perhaps this was an accident, because perhaps allegedly she was drunk behind the wheel. Maybe she just backed up, didn't notice she hit him, and then drove off and had no idea until the next day. But as you said, the accusations are that there was a fight and that this was done intentionally.
And now, when I said in the beginning that I could see it go either way, at first that they were saying that it was, possibly an accident and she hit him without knowing. Then the charges got upped to like, no, this was malicious, this was intentional. And of course, the charges are upped for Karen once she starts claiming that she's being framed and that the cops are covering up what really happened. So then all of a sudden the hammer comes down on her, and they're like, actually, you know what? No, we think you did it on purpose, and this was an argument between you two. So the thing too, Joseph Scott Morgan, for those who don't know, he's like a forensic investigator, professor as well, and he has his own podcast. I listened to it today. He was kind of claiming that maybe it was possible John was kind of bent over. Maybe this isn't what Joseph Scott said, but it was something I was kind of thinking, like maybe he dropped his phone and he bent over to grab it, and then she backs up and hits him on accident. Again, I don't see this being like intentional if that's what it happened, but that's not the state's theory. They changed it to like, nope, this was intentional. So again, it's like, I don't know, because all his injuries were to his upper body. And Joseph Scott Morgan, who has done so many autopsies and death scenes, is claiming most vehicle deaths kind of take, hello, Linda, it's good to see you, and everyone else who joined. Most times you'll see the injuries from the waist down. So their knees or their shins, their hips, they kind of turn their body to kind of protect themselves. But here, most of his injuries are to the head. Karen claims that his eyes were swollen shut, his nose was bloody. And the other problem too is the officer who files charges against Karen is close friends with Jennifer McCabe, the woman who is texting hello as he's being dropped off, and Brian Alberts, whose house this party took place at. So he's also the officer who discovered the SUV having a broken taillight and had her SUV towed away. So the person who's kind of doing the evidence collecting and kind of charging her is someone who is friends with Jennifer McCabe and the guy who owns the house, Brian Alberts. Brian Alberts is a Gulf War veteran. He's, like I said, also on the police force. He is also he's not a professional boxer, but he boxes and he's very proficient with it. So when the defense says we believe that there was a fight that broke out in the house, I think they're theorizing that perhaps Brian or somebody in the house was fighting him. And then it brings into veterinary evidence. And what I mean by that is a dog. So when we get to his injuries, besides the one on his head, so the blunt force trauma is what killed him, in addition to hypothermia. And hello, Roxanne, good to see you. So keep that in mind as well.
And that Karen Read left him for dead in the cold, knowing that she had run him over.
And we go back to the timeline now, it gets even more interesting. At 4:53 a.m., Karen Read calls Jennifer McCabe looking for John O'Keefe. Jennifer and Karen and another woman drive to John's house, right? The house where the party was. And then to John's house, to John O'Keefe's house, and then back to the Fairview house, where then they find John O'Keefe in the snow. So when they had first gotten there, it was lightly snowing, but then I guess it snowed all night, and he's in the snow at that point. 6:04, 911 call reporting John O'Keefe was found in the snow.
So they pull up after searching for him and wondering where he is, and Karen sees him in the snow. When you hear the 911 call, we're not going to play it tonight, but this obviously isn't going to be our first deep dive on this case because, like I said, now that the trial is starting, now is the time to really hone in on things because that's going to give us the expert opinions. That's going to give us the real evidence and the facts that are just not out there in public yet. So we'll get to the 911 call, but I will say I've heard it and you can hear Karen absolutely hysterical. And, she is the one who is trying to warm his body up. She's the one trying to give him CPR. Apparently there was vomit in his mouth as well as on his boxers. His boxers allegedly were saturated in it. Now, why exactly are his boxers visible? It's hard to kind of picture, I guess, the whole scene. But a lot of times with head trauma, you get, for those who have ever had a concussion and stuff like that, you get nauseous. So is the vomit from that? Is it from drinking too much? Is it from concussion from a fight inside? Then they bring him out front, or is it a concussion from him being hit? We have to look at both sides.
So as I'm looking at this, it seems like Jennifer McCabe is crucial to establishing for a jury what she saw and what happened that night versus whatever the defense is going to say happened that night.
Absolutely. She's not only crucial for the prosecution about what the state says she witnessed that night, but she is potentially crucial for the defense because the defense claims that at something like 2:27 a.m., Jennifer Googles something along the lines of how long to die in the snow. And then they allege that she went and covered her tracks and then erased this search.
And we've seen it in other cases. People searching stuff, people texting people, people calling people, and they erase it on their phone and it's been brought out with phone forensics and analysis. So once people start deleting things, in my mind, red flags go off. You know, why are you deleting things if you have nothing to hide? If he's not found until 6 something in the morning, why at 2 something is somebody inside that house deleting how long before you die in the cold? You know, just things that kind of make your head go, wait, what? And like I said, the defense, I think, has more of a leg to stand on thus far in this case.
2:30 in the morning, no one has any idea that John O'Keefe is laying for dead outside in the snow. So why would she have any reason to Google such a thing? And then why erase it at a later date if that is in fact what she looked up? And here lies the conspiracy theory. Here lies, I think, the crux of what the defense is saying went wrong in this situation. And they say that John O'Keefe went into this party, that there was a fight, there was an altercation. He got into a fight with Jennifer McCabe's, allegedly with the owner of the house, her brother-in-law, that his dog got involved somehow, and that they all worked to cover it up.
All right, guys. So that was just the timeline through that episode of Court TV. I want to play the clips that I've put together. Like I said, Court TV has been covering this for a long time, for months. So I did my best to follow their playlist on the case and kind of pick out the episodes that kind of had pieces to it that stood out to me and I think that you guys will find interesting. In addition to clipping some of their stuff, I've added in pictures regarding the crime scene, just stuff that have floated around in this case that are found on Google and X and just other sources like on YouTube. So let me just share my file and I'll pause it and we'll talk about stuff like that. And also, after that, I want to play Melanie Little's segment on Court TV because she knows a lot of like the who's who. And like I said, this is a good live stream to kind of jump on if you don't know much about this case, because I'm kind of just giving you the surface level of things, okay?
Reed and her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, were bar hopping on a snowy night in Massachusetts. At the end of the night, they were invited to a house party at the home of a fellow officer in Canton, Massachusetts. When Karen and John arrived, Karen did not exit the car. John did. From that point forward, there are 2 very different versions of what happened. Prosecutors say Karen was mad at John and purposely struck him with her car and left him on the ground to die in the snow. But Karen and her defense team say John went to the party. Something terrible happened inside the house, and his body was placed outside, where he was found dead the next morning. Karen has been charged with murder, but claims she is the victim of a big cover-up by police. The battle inside the courtroom and outside the courthouse has been intense. Prosecutors insisting Karen Read is a murderer, while she insists it was someone inside the house that night who is responsible for what happened to her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. Tonight, we look at the key pieces of evidence that may prove murder or cover-up as we investigate the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe.
Okay, so here I have the CCTV footage of one of the bars that they were at together. In the bottom left-hand corner, that is John O'Keefe with the hat on and Karen. I've slowed it down, so this obviously isn't the right speed, but we have very little CCTV footage of that night. So I feel like slowing it down is kind of more vital to our little deep dive tonight. You can obviously see that she has a smile on her face. He's very close to her. They don't really look like they're a couple that's arguing. Now, a lot of things can take place, as you guys know, when you're out drinking or having fun with people. At one moment, you could be having a blast and then something takes place, an argument, maybe something's said, and it's taken the wrong way, or, you know, just miscommunication, or something is uncovered and all of a sudden you're in a fight. We have no physical evidence of a fight taking place. I believe there were voicemails that Karen left him that were kind of questionable. She was calling him some names. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just nothing really would say. And even those voicemails, like, oh yes, like I could see this woman being so mad that she would back up and hit him in front of a house full of cops across the street. Not that she would know that the deputy chief lived across the street, but this neighborhood, obviously people have Ring cameras. What would possess this woman to just decide I'm going to hit my boyfriend and kill him? And not only that, like, what if he didn't die, you know? So they're just claiming that she hits him. She doesn't get out of her car to make sure that he's dead. And then she just drives away. Like, to me, it's just, I can't kind of picture it. Yeah, Katie said, yeah, it's fun AF till it's not. Right. I did want to highlight something Jay said. Always fun going in blind just before the trial. I like to role play as a juror who could break down the deadlock. Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. Jay said, I'm really getting sucked into it. Glad for a change. I don't have to wait for like a year for the trial to start. Yes. And that's the thing is I've seen people covering this. I've seen, you know, the Glare and, you know, Turtle Boy, everyone just very much into this case. I've been busy with other things, never really thought to look at it, saw that the trial was coming up. And then as soon as Criminality did her deep dive into it, I was hooked, and I've just been following everything I can on this. And yeah, I'm kind of excited that we won't have to wait a year or 2 years like other cases, and the trial is going to commence very soon. Roxanne says she doesn't know anything about this case. So I'm glad you guys are kind of following this rabbit hole with me tonight. Like I said, this is a slowed down CCTV footage of them at that bar, one of the bars they went to that night of his death. So there's nothing, there's no sound. It's just slowed down. Obviously looking very happy. He puts his arm around her. Mind you, they've been together for a few years at this point. Like I said, they dated in the past. They have a lot invested in their relationship.
So I pull at the foot of the driveway.
So this is Karen giving her take. I believe this was on ABC. And, you know, people have claimed that her story has changed. I have yet to see any statement made by her that has contradicted anything else that she's said. So I don't understand why people say that she's changed her story. If people can point me in that, I would love to know. I would love to kind of check her statements myself, but everything that I've seen, you know, she's stuck to the same story. She does question, did I hit him? And now that is not changing her story. She's, you know, her lawyers have said she was in shock. We'll get to that statement in this little clips that I put together. So she is 44 years old. She's a financial analyst and college professor. She's facing second-degree murder charges in the death of John O'Keefe. So he obviously, like I said earlier, Boston police officer, his body was laying in the snow outside a house 14 miles from Boston. So south of Boston. I love Boston. It's one of my favorite cities to visit, a lot of history in it. And I just feel like if this is a police cover-up, it's a shame. And it's kind of ironic given the fact of, you know, the Boston Tea Party and just the history in Boston, for there to be this level of corruption. It's just very ironic. So let's listen to her statements.
Snowing. John has no coat on. It's windy. So I drop him off. He goes up the driveway and approaches the side door. And as I see him approach the door, I look down at my phone.
Reed says after about 10 minutes of waiting in her car, she became irritated that O'Keefe still hadn't gotten in touch with her. And she drove back to his home, where she continued calling him before, she says, she fell asleep around 1:30 in the morning.
Now, when it comes into question of her being drunk, she's claiming she wasn't too drunk. People who defend her say she wasn't drunk. I'm under the impression, like, okay, let's say she was drunk. I still don't think that she would maliciously and vindictively kill him. That's just my opinion. They come up with a BAC level for her later in the morning. So they give her a breathalyzer test, and she comes, I have the number in these clips, so we'll evaluate it when we get to it. But they are able to come up with an evaluation of what level of drunk she was at the time she drops him off around 12:30. And they're claiming she was drunk. So this is where I'm saying, like, okay, so then that's, something that's a win for the prosecution, because that obviously doesn't look good. And it can impair your judgment. People do and say things that they normally wouldn't when they're drunk. So I can see how that could play into, she's mad. She decides to kill him, but I don't know. Katie says, y'all know, sometimes in a drunken blackout, faint memories can come back. She could have accidentally hit him, not have remembered, and flashback happened later. I used to heavily drink. It's embarrassing. And that's where I'm saying, you're like saying exactly what I'm saying. And Tony, you too. I could see it going in the direction of like, oh yeah, like I could definitely see, she's intoxicated. He gets out. Remember, his phone is found underneath him. He drops his phone, bends down to pick it up. She puts it in reverse, drunk. Maybe she meant to put it in drive. Maybe she thought like she would do a 3-point turn. And then, she accidentally hits him. The problem is as soon as she starts defending herself and saying like, no, this is a cover up by the police, they up their charges and they're saying like, oh no, they got in a fight and this was on purpose. That's where they kind of lose me a little bit. Again, I've been young and stupid. I wasn't 42 drinking like they are. But I've done that lifestyle, bar hopping, and I've done and said things that I never, ever would do sober. And it was kind of like a wake up call, like, wow, I don't like you when you're drunk, Amber. Don't do that. I just have a hard time believing that this was done on purpose. OCD Shaggy says, I definitely don't think she hit him. I'm not sold on it. I believe, didn't they say at first that she was doing a 3-point turn? Some people call it a K turn. And other experts have said, well, then her right tail light wouldn't have been hit. It would have been her left tail light that hit and broke. So that's the other thing, is like, how exactly is the state going to prove this to the jury that this is what took place? This is the physics of it. And she was going 24 miles an hour. All that will have to be, they have the burden of proof, right?
This is the morning that John O'Keefe's body was found on this yard, and you can see the snow conditions. Now, it snowed overnight. I don't think there was this much snow when Karen Read was dropping him off, because it really hadn't started yet. But this is the level of snow cover that we're talking about when John O'Keefe's body was found and discovered early in the morning.
And remember, the plow guy is claiming he didn't see anybody in the yard or in the front when he's plowing. So, and mind you also, people were leaving the party, they're leaving the driveway, and they're not seeing him at all throughout the night.
You see the police arriving there as well. Details about John O'Keefe's body. He was wearing 2 shirts, jeans, and had 1 sneaker on.
So if anyone can kind of clue me in on where his other sneaker was, I would love to know. I've seen various reports on that. Please let me know and where the source is that I can find that. I've seen no pictures of the shoe that was missing on him and was found. A lot of times, and this is another thing that kind of could go into the prosecution's theory, people who are hit with vehicles do lose their shoes. So the problem is, once we get to seeing his wounds on his arms, I want to see the shirt he was wearing. And this was something that Joseph Scott Morgan said, like, what exactly are the marks on that shirt, do they align with the marks on his arms? Did something on the vehicle maybe rip his shirt and you can find the particles of the shirt on the vehicle? Like, all that would be very ideal for the prosecution if they're claiming that it was from road rash or it was from something on the vehicle that tore his arms up. Obviously, his clothing would be torn up too. The problem is Modine, I almost put your comment up on the screen. The problem is the shirt was taken off of him at the hospital by the nurses. You know, they've got their own job to do. And the chain of custody is in question for his clothing because it wasn't logged in evidence. And I guess the state, or correct me if I'm wrong, somebody maybe in the police force, I can't remember the details, but somebody held onto his shirt without logging it. And it was like a while before they did so. Hello, Allison. Thanks for being here. All right. So 6 inches of snow covering him. He's wearing 2-layer shirt. We saw it in the video. One of it's a long sleeve shirt. And this is the other thing too. This says located on left side of the yard, 8 feet from the street. I heard Melanie Little today say it was 12 feet from the street. So that's the other thing too. Like, if people can kind of clue me in on maybe the document that states this officially. These are just things in this case that I've seen, like different things being reported. So I'd love to know what's correct. Was it 8 feet from the street or was it 12 feet? And hi, Seth. Good to see you. Great picture. The injuries are very odd. And once I start showing them, I think other people might be questioning their head or scratching their head as well. Somebody said something about Melissa Jade. Good to see you. I was just thinking, I'd love to see my friends in here. Like, I see Shay Benet, Melissa Jade. Thank you guys for being here. They never thought it would go this far. They upcharged her to pressure her into taking a plea deal, but she told him to go pound sand. And she has a very strong personality. Some people, she's rubbed the wrong way. I don't find anything wrong with her personality, but I'm also a Northeasterner, so I don't know if that's why. But Lisa says, I would love to be on this jury. Right. They definitely are going to be in for a long analysis of everything because, like I said, the state has a lot to prove in my mind at this point.
Approximately 6 inches of snow covering him. Again, it snowed overnight, so he had to be on the ground for a while. He's located on the left side of the yard, about 8 feet from the street. He's found lying on his back, bleeding from his face and nose, surrounded by drops of blood and shards of glass. Have some more photos for you. Warning, blood spatter. This is on the snow. Blood spatter on the snow on the yard. The one problem I have with that is, did it snow? How much snow was there at the time he was struck?
That's what I have a problem with too, because they're claiming this storm came through, and you know, when she drops him off, the storm hadn't really hit, but it was snowing. So if he's struck the moment that she's dropped him off, how is this blood like laying on top? It should be covered with inches of snow. It was a northeastern snowstorm. That's where I'm getting a little confused on. I believe, someone in the prosecution side said something about rainfall or something, like melted away the top layers, and that's how they discovered this. I don't know if that's 100%, so don't quote me, but I don't understand how this is laying on top if he had been out there since, remember, 12:30-ish, he's dropped off and allegedly hit. So Shay, for someone who, I don't know where Dietz lives, maybe she has experience with snow like me, but I don't see a leaf blower blowing away snow and finding that. I don't know. I have a hard time because it looks like very packed, like snow. Like A leaf blower I could see blowing off like maybe a couple centimeters of snow. So for this storm to hit, it was like inches of snow. Midwest area. Okay. I don't know much about like their snow level or anything, but I know from my experience with snow, like I just don't see a leaf blower blowing away inches of snow personally. And again, I'm all for people's theories. Natasha says me either. It's just, especially with a plow going by. So that's the other thing. Once a plow plows the street, like it's pushing all that snow into your yard, into your driveway. Yes, at the bottom of your driveway, it's something you have to deal with. You have to go out and shovel or use your own snow plow after the street plow just dumped all this stuff into your area. I just really don't. And I'm troubled that they would even use a neighbor's leaf blower to blow away stuff to get to evidence. Like, I just don't really see. It's hard. We should experiment. I mean, I'm all for that. It's just a couple months too late. Shauna says, I don't either. I was raised in Michigan. Now, Michigan, I know gets snow for sure. I'm not buying the leaf blower blew away like inches of snow. I live in Midwest and don't see that happening. That's just my opinion. If Melissa Jade is here, I mean, you guys here where we're at now in New York, we don't get as much snow as we did where I grew up, upstate. In fact, Syracuse gets some of the most snow in the entire country, and that's where I lived. I don't know. I'm not really buying the leaf blower theory, blowing away snow. Leaf blowers usually blow light snow. Yeah, I'm seeing like maybe the very top layer, the snow that's all sparkly that you see, but packs of snow from a snowstorm. We're not just talking about a little snowfall that took place. This was very present, happy without the snow. Right. Was it wet snow or powder? It makes a difference. It was a huge storm. It was something that was, there was alerts out there on like travel and weather advisory, not just a little snowfall. So I don't know. It would be interesting to see an experiment. This would be something that the prosecution would have to come forward and say, yeah, like we've done this, we've done that, and that's exactly what happened. Will 12 jurors believe that? I don't know. To me, it seems more likely that this blood took place after a bunch of snow had already fallen. That's just my opinion. Yeah, I need a snowologist, por favor. Exactly. That's where you're at. It's terrible. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it definitely takes thick skin to live in upstate New York with the snow.
And on the ground.
And see, Vinny here is not really buying the whole leaf blower theory either. And I know that he's from New Jersey. So he's also from Northeast. So I don't know. Again, I can't discredit anybody's theory because it's all relevant and it's all possible at this point. Anything goes at this point. But if I'm on the jury and I'm being told a leaf blower blew away the top layers of this snow, I'm not really buying it.
Is the blood on top of the snow? Is it underneath? I think that's important, but I'm not an expert. I'm just a lawyer.
It feels we're the only ones fighting for the.
Okay, this is another public statement that she has made. Blue says, I'm just going on theory, like when a dog pees in the snow and it kind of settles in the snow, I can't see being able to snow blow that. I don't know. The consistencies are a little different. Yeah, I see what you mean. Like once the dog pee, yeah, I know what you mean. Video of vehicle forensics examination is conveniently missing. What do you know? And that's the other thing too. You just reminded me, Pug Mom. Something Melanie Little pointed out. She was playing some of the first news reports on this case, and they were alleging that there was Ring camera footage that captured the whole thing, and Karen hit him with the car. Come to find out, that footage never existed. So much like we've seen in the Watts case, false information was being pushed out by the state, and it didn't match the evidence or the confession. Oh, wow. I didn't realize you were that north, Tony. Yeah, it definitely gets cold up there.
Truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. Just feels like no one else wants it.
Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
Spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life.
Yeah.
I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close.
See, the press is saying, why do you admit to it? And they're referring to the statements that Jennifer McCabe is telling in her testimonies, in her statements, official statements she's made, that are saying, you know, when they were looking for John, Karen was saying stuff along the lines of, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? So they're here questioning her outside the courthouse, claiming, why'd you admit to it? That's not an admission in my mind. I don't know about you guys, but I don't see her questioning and shock. Like once she is wondering where her boyfriend is and all that. Like, I just don't see that as her admitting to it. It's not like she was in a confession with police or anything like that. And she says, I did it. It was a question, like her lawyer is saying.
To that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That's like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question. She asked a question, which is very different. She didn't admit to anything.
The damages to the right rear.
Now, this is the prosecution in court at one of the hearings. Again, I am clipping things and I've put it together that I think are significant. So we have to play both sides and show both theories.
Corner panel of the defendant's vehicle. Embedded within the bumper to that vehicle is pieces of a cocktail glass. The victim, Mr. O'Keefe, is last observed on surveillance video, external surveillance video from the waterfall establishment that he left just prior to going to 34 Fairview, with a...
See, look how packed that snow looks. I don't see it being like light, fluffy, blowing in the wind type of snow. Like I see it very dense, heavy. Like I said, this wasn't just your typical snowstorm or snowfall. This was a huge storm that there was advisories about. The plow guy not seeing him in the yard and people leaving the party and going home, not seeing him is a huge red flag to me. Yeah, it is. I see it as packed too. Like that's the perfect type of snow to make a snowman. Yeah, definitely not white Christmas snow. I agree. Wendy says his injuries don't look like a dog attack to me. And if she hit him, wouldn't there be blood evidence on the vehicle? Exactly. And you know what? I Googled dog injuries. I'm not going to pull it up because a lot of them were blurred out on Google where you have to like tap it and say like show image because they're very gruesome. I will say that I didn't really see like many that looked like his arm. And now I'll show his arm in these clips coming up. So I agree with both your statements. To me, maybe scratches from a dog, maybe a sharp object being like stabbed at him, I could see. Again, I would love to know like what type of swabs the injuries would have pulled, like as far as saliva from a dog or any DNA from a dog's nails. All of that, of course, has been not able to do because they got rid of the dog, which is another questionable thing. And we'll get to those details coming up as well. And I agree that I believe, and like Joseph Scott Morgan said in his podcast, there should be bumper remnants or, him skin at least. I remember an ex-boyfriend, a pedestrian ran into his car as he was like turning. Like they were jaywalking. And as he was turning left, they decided they were going to cross the street at that point. Like didn't realize he was turning left. It was this, he didn't get ticketed or anything. And the girl was fine. But I remember him specifically telling me like on his side mirror, her skin was on it. And he was like, oh, I was like grossed out. Like her skin was like on my side mirror. So you would think that there is something that would kind of indicate on her vehicle a human was in the impact of it. Now there's that whole piece of hair that has been questioned, and it was human hair and then it wasn't human hair. And so that is a whole thing too. That's kind of like, so what is it? Was it or wasn't it his hair? Thank you so much, Melissa Jade. Please take a moment to leave your DNA on the like. Yes, thank you. Like I said, I've been out of the loop on YouTube. So if you could just like it, it would really help out my stream and the algorithm. And I appreciate that, Melissa, very much. Chase is singing to you. So yeah, I'm just questioning, like you said, like, why isn't there anything that's come out that says like, well, we found pieces of his clothing underneath her car, or we found this or that, linking his physical body to that vehicle. Yeah. And Linda, thank you for bringing that up. I have the link because not only did she do the episode, but there was a whole, let's see if I can. There was a whole website that kind of highlighted that episode, and they did their own blog and breakdown of it. And pretty much to summarize it, you guys can definitely go watch it. But there is a police Canton cover-up. It's called Canton Cover-Up Part 267. Police dog bite experts concludes 100% certainty that John O'Keefe was bitten by a dog. And so he goes on attorney Melanie Little's YouTube channel, and they have like a whole discussion, and he pretty much tells her like, yes, hold on, let me share my screen so you can see the website. And again, you can go right to Melanie's YouTube and find this episode. Here's the thumbnail, but this whole website kind of highlighted that. See, this is a quote. These pop-ups. Oh my gosh, these pop-ups. I can guarantee I've seen more dog bites than any medical examiner. And I would say that because people don't often die from dog bites, medical examiners don't see a lot of dog bites on dead bodies. It just doesn't happen. If we're talking about gunshot wounds, I'd be a little out of my league there. But when it comes to dog bites, I can tell you how many I've seen. Jeez. Okay, so some of these show his wounds. I want to be careful. This points at the top of John's arms. It's very typical of puncture and lacerations at this point, and lowers looks like it would be caused by canines, but this one stuck out the most. So that's them kind of evaluating. I'm scrolling by. It looks like front teeth getting a very shallow bite. So he was under the impression that it was like a not trained dog, but an amateur dog attack, I guess you could say, like not a police dog attack like he's used to seeing. This looks very typical dog bites to me, very typical. And so that was just a quote from that expert. I will link this in the description box. Like this is him right here on the show, kind of showing his little whatever. So yeah, that was also very interesting too. So we have, let's run through it again. We have a, dog bite expert, canine trainer, claiming that it looks like dog bites to him. We have a medical examiner report that came out with the conclusion that it is undetermined.
Cocktail.
Sorry. And then we have the federal agents who have come into this investigation and said that he was not hit by a car. Lisa, that's definitely dog bites. Mine looked just like that. Oh my gosh, you were attacked? That's terrible. Glad you're okay. Did someone tell their dog to attack him maybe? And if they're if the defense is claiming that there was a possible fight in that house, for those who have dogs, I mean, if you guys were in a physical fight or altercation with, now remember, John didn't really know the owner of that house well. He knew people that were at that party better. So if this dog doesn't really know this guy, on top of there being a brawl between John and somebody whose dog, you know, is also in that house and has the need to protect their owner and their property and their territory, would that instigate a dog to jump in after seeing his owner in a brawl with somebody? You know, like dogs are very protective. They, you know, even the little ones, I only ever had Malteses who are very small dogs, but they were males and they're super protective. If somebody was fighting me, even though he was only 10 pounds, you can bet my little dog Cannoli or Frankie would come over and biting the ankles. So I could see it. Like I said, I Googled, and you guys can easily Google dog bites as well. Some of them are, I'm just like, they're so gory that it's like, that doesn't really look like John's arm. But then I get this expert on Melanie's channel who is saying like, no, yeah, like that looks like to me a dog bite. So again, it's another thing in this case where once the medical examiners and experts are up on their stand, those are the testimonies that we really need to hone in on, because both sides are obviously going to have their theories. Both sides are going to have their own experts, and that's going to be something that's very noteworthy. So that on that day of court is going to be crucial to the jury for sure. So they're claiming that John gets out of the car with a glass that he had from a bar, and the shards of glass are found laying around him, as well as embedded into her bumper. So we don't hear anything about blood, skin, tissue, anything like that in her bumper, clothing, but we're hearing about glass. So is glass something that you could see being planted? So that's the other thing. Like, there's a whole conspiracy being alleged here. So you have to think with that conspiracy mind, which is no problem for me, but how will the jury take it? Could somebody have planted shards of glass into her bumper? What do you guys think? Let me know.
Glass in his right hand. Same arm that's injured, the same type of glass that is then recovered from the bumper of the defendant's car.
Undisputed fact number one.
Remember, this is a defense.
January 29th, 2022, Officer John O'Keefe was found dead in the yard of Brian Albert at his house at 34 Fairview in Canton. That is.
So the pictures on the left are pictures that I've included. They're from images, straight from the Canton Police Department of the scene. That is the blood. That's where he was laying. Modine said, they said he was wearing 2 shirts. Can a dog leave those marks through clothes? I think they could, which is why I think it's vital to see his shirts. If we can't swab his arm, can we swab the clothing and find something on there? Can there be some of that clothing, if it's what the state says and it's from road rash and from the vehicle hitting her, him, could they find pieces of that clothing on her vehicle or whatever tore to make those marks on his arms? You know, there should be something that is remnants maybe on the street. And that's the other issue, though, is once that plow comes through, if this happened, in the driveway or near the street, that evidence could have been pushed however far a plow takes the snow, right? So for those who don't know, I mean, plows are just going down the road. Some people don't live where there's snow. Lucky you guys. When the plow comes with its huge like shovel thing in the front, I mean, they're dragging stuff all the way down until they drop it off somewhere or until they turn around and all that. So were there parts of the shirt that is just missing and gone? I don't know. Is there something on her vehicle that shows the parts of shirts? We just haven't seen his clothing, unless I've missed it. Have any of you guys seen any of his clothing? And mind you, hi Wolfie, thanks for being here. mind you, this is the clothing that was not logged into evidence in time, or in a proper time, I should say. You would think his shirts would have gotten torn. The shirts are definitely key, and Joseph Scott Morgan has said so as well. Yeah, exactly. That's a huge question too. How did nobody see him when they were leaving the house? 13 people in that house. Believe they said 11 people like left. Like by the time he's discovered in the morning, I think there was only like, I don't know, 3 people at the scene, Karen included. How did they rule? Oh my gosh, Jesse, you and me think alike a lot. I was thinking that too. Like, what if the plow was the one that hit him? I mean, plows hit vehicles, they hit dogs, they hit people. Isn't that funny? Like, I was definitely thinking that too. Like, wait a minute, how did nobody kind of raise the question of like, maybe the plow accidentally hit him? But at the same time, the marks on the arms, you know, his injuries to his head are what he succumbed to in hypothermia. The marks on the arms, that would be kind of hard for me to imagine a plow kind of doing that. But especially since he was found kind of in that same area that he gets dropped off at. But, you know, that it's a fair question. All right, so yeah, just the pictures on the left I've included, and they're from the crime scene.
Undisputed fact, where he was found dead and what the circumstances were surrounding that death are why we're here now. Second undisputed fact, when John O'Keefe was found, he had this set of wounds on his right arm.
And he wasn't hit.
So those look like lacerations to me. They definitely look like scrapes, cuts. The homeowner is a trained mixed martial arts fighter. He's also a Gulf War veteran. The mixed martial arts military training, cop, police officer training, and boxing.
By the car, period, full stop. That's their independent expert, not ours.
This is a huge one, I think.
Hold on, let me rewind that, because that is an independent expert, not the defense's, claiming this.
And he wasn't hit by the car, period, full stop. That's their independent expert, not ours.
This is a huge.
So there seems to be a lot of people that are saying like, no, Carr did not do this.
Huge one, I think. Again, it's from the Commonwealth statement of the case. Defense does not necessarily agree with this, but while driving to Mr. O'Keefe's house, the defendant stated to Ms. McCabe, and this is when he's missing, right? So this is the following morning. While driving to Mr. O'Keefe's house, the defendant stated to Ms. McCabe, "Could I have hit him? Did I hit him?" Ms. McCabe stated that the defendant also told her about a cracked tail light on her vehicle. Ms. McCabe stated that they turned onto Fairview Road from Chapman Street, and at the time it was snowing heavily with the wind blowing, creating poor visibility. Ms. McCabe stated that just prior to 34 Fairview, there was a cluster of trees, and immediately the defendant stated that she saw the victim. This statement initially confused Ms. McCabe and Ms. Roberts as they were unable to see Mr. O'Keefe's body lying in the snow. Ms. McCabe stated that the defendant screamed to open the door and ran directly over to the body near the cluster of trees and laid on top of him for warmth and began CPR. So I guess the allegation here from McCabe and Roberts, which will be from the prosecution.
Remember, Jennifer McCabe is the sister-in-law of Brian, who owns the house. She's claiming Karen said, "Could I have hit him? Did I hit him?" Now, that's not a confession. That's not admission of guilt. That's seeing your significant other presumably looking dead in a yard, and you're thinking, how did this happen? And your mind is racing so much that can you be saying things out loud in shock? Like, I definitely think that that could be what happened personally. Yeah, can we trust anything Jen says, though? I'm not really on board with trusting anyone in that house. Remember, that's also the woman who says she saw them being dropped off. She texted him saying, "Hey, hello." She's also the one that did the Google search before he's ever found at 2 something in the morning. How long until you die in the snow or outside? We'll get to the exact words in a minute.
Is that she knew the body was there. Nobody else saw his body laying there, but she knew where the body was because she's the one that struck him.
On January 31st, Dr. Irini Scortibello.
So this is going to go through some of the medical examiner's findings without playing it and just reading what's on the shirt or on the screen. It says shorts were soaking wet and saturated with blood and vomit. The victim was also observed to have one black Nike sneaker with a white Nike logo on the side. On January 31st, that's when his autopsy took place. And this is what the autopsy was stated. Again, their findings were undetermined. Another key to all this, because they're not saying this was an accident death. They're not saying obviously he didn't do this to himself. But they're not saying that this was a murder scene.
From the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner conducted the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe. The doctor advised the troopers that she observed several abrasions to the victim's right forearm, 2 swollen black eyes, a small cut above the right eye, a cut to the left side of the nose, and approximately 2-inch laceration to the back right of his head.
I'm going to pause it just so that everyone can kind of take in what's being said here at the autopsy and what the injuries are. So the back of his head is where the big fracture was. And again, he died from blunt force trauma and hypothermia mixed together. But definitely the trauma to his body is what did it. Now, remember, Joseph Scott Morgan is saying from what he knows with car accidents and pedestrian and car deaths, a lot of the times the injuries are from the waist down, the knees, the hips, your hands, right? Like whenever you're going to protect yourself from anything, it's instinctual that you put your hands up. The abrasions that we've seen in the pictures on his arms, like I am having a hard time trying to figure out like what part of the car would have done those scratches on him. Now, when they're talking about the lacerations in the black eye, that obviously can happen from head trauma. So you get hit in the head. You're going to get like raccoon eyes from your injury. That could happen from being hit by a car, like, because Joseph Scott Morgan says, was he bending over, when this happened? Maybe that's why his injuries are to the top part of his body. We have to kind of think outside the box a little bit. Or are these kind of injuries that take place with a fist fight? Or, he's being hit by something other than a car. I feel like it can go either way. I'm not sure how you guys are feeling in chat and those on replay. Like, let me know what you're thinking as well. Let me just see what chat's saying right now. She didn't admit to anything, but it doesn't mean she's not a liar either, right? If visibility was bad, could it have been a hit and run by a different car? Right. I mean, there's how many people at this party, 13 that we know of, like drinking? Nobody's going to want to admit, like, I was drunk and I hit him. Like, what do I do? So why does it have to be the girlfriend who did it? You know what I mean? Oh, Seth, thank you so much. I'm just scrolling up. I haven't like checked chat, but I see that you sent a super chat and I really appreciate it, but I can't find it. Hold on. Must be way up there. But yeah, from what I see in chat, just doesn't seem like very many people are buying this whole hit and run thing with the vehicle, especially because of the arms. Oh, he says, because I support you always. You do, and I appreciate it so much. Everyone that shows up and just gives the thumbs up, I love and appreciate you guys for doing that. Hello, Music City Mom. Didn't see you come in. I think, Miss ATS News, if the weather was bad, it might have been an accident. Yeah, and that's like I said, like at first her charges where it was, they were kind of saying like you did this, you hit him with your car. And then as soon as she starts saying like defending herself, like, no, I didn't. Like, I think something else happened. I think there's some cover up being had here. They come down with second-degree murder charges and they're saying, no, they got in a fight and this was done on purpose. Like, that's where they kind of lose me a little bit. And plus the arm scratches. I'm like, if this was even an accident, yeah, accident is always possible, but them putting on more charges makes me suspicious, right? And not only that, but like the whole, like the person who gave her the charges, who towed her car, who finds the taillight at the scene, that person is friends with the owner of the house. It's very problematic when you add in all that other stuff too. Thank you, Seth. At the very least, there's a ton of reasonable doubt, and if she's guilty, they'll never convince a jury. Horrible investigation practices. Right. Collecting blood evidence in a solo cup. Finding the taillight hours and hours later in the taillight at the scene. Yeah, blatant conflicts of interest. The deputy chief living across the street with a Ring camera, claiming that nothing was found on it and that they didn't even ask to take his camera in or the footage. Very weird. Yeah, the body could have been dumped there. I'm feeling like it was put out there just based off of the blood a while later. No, he didn't have a coat on. Like, we watched the CCTV footage in the beginning of these clips. They're at the bar. He's wearing long sleeve shirt. It's got like a hoodie on it. I'm assuming he had like an undershirt on too, because they said that he was wearing 2 layers.
And multiple skull fractures that resulted in bleeding of the brain. Dr. Scorti-Bello further advised the troopers that the victim's pancreas was a dark red color indicating hypothermia was a contributing factor to his death.
So hypothermia, contributing factor to the blunt force trauma that he experienced. So that means obviously he was out there long enough for the liver to change color. Could that align with the timeline of the person in the house Googling how long until someone dies out in the cold? You know, I mean, he's not discovered till 6 something in the morning. If he's put out there around 2 something and there's a storm coming through, he has no jacket on.
Dr. Scorti-Bello opined from her examination that the significant blunt force trauma injuries occurred prior to Mr. O'Keefe becoming hypothermic.
Yes, Pug Mom, yes. The house was, from what I'm hearing, was for sale before the death, but he sold it for $50,000 less than asking price, and they refinished the basement. Now, some people have claimed that that's not suspicious to them, that people do that a lot of times when they're selling a home to upgrade it or just, you know, to fix any issues so that the house could get sold. Maybe there was mold down there. But when you're including the lack of blood out on the scene in the front yard with his injuries and the fact that they refinished the basement, you can't help but wonder, like, were they trying to cover up? Did they remove stuff that, you know, you guys have seen forensic files. You take off a layer of your flooring, the blood has seeped through the cracks. And you actually can see the evidence from the crime scene, like underneath the floor. So you clean the top layer of the floor with bleach or whatever you got to do. But actually there's remnants of the crime that has, you know, lingered. So was something done so that would never be found? You know, the house gets sold. Okay. Yeah, it was $50,000 less than asking price. in the market that is in now. It's just kind of, to me, adding it to everything else, it's suspicious to me. Other people don't think it's suspicious, but I don't know. And remember, the crime scene was never secured. They didn't have tents up, when we've seen in other crime cases, specifically in referring to Gabby Petito, they did a tent pop up around the area that she was found. They secured the scene. Nothing like that was ever done. The house that, this party took place at never had a search warrant. They never searched the house. So crime scene wasn't secured. And hours later is when they find the tail light from her vehicle. So it wasn't like when they first got on the scene, they're like, Karen, what's this red light here? Oh, this looks like a tail light from your Lexus SUV. Like, what the heck? No, that's not what took place. It was hours later. Hours later. Yeah, that's the thing, House Huddle, is like, yes, his injuries to his face, like, it definitely could be from a fight. Medical examiner is stating that it wasn't from a fight, though, even though they're saying it's inconclusive. For some reason, they added in the note that they didn't think it was from a fight. It can also be from even the back of the head injury. You can get black eyes from any type of head injury, that it's just from blood wherever your injury is in your head filling the eye socket. So it's one of those pieces of evidence in this case. Like, I think it could go either way.
Evidenced by hemorrhaging in his pancreas and stomach. Mr. O'Keefe had arrived at the Good Samaritan Medical Center with a body temperature reading in the low 80s. The doctor opined that the extensive injuries to his head likely rendered Mr. O'Keefe incapacitated.
From an evidentiary standpoint and from what the ME found about what type of clothing did this poor man have on his upper body. Okay, I want to know, because I want to see what those injuries on his arm, kind of marry up to. If there's any significant tearing external to that, whatever he had on, I'm presuming that it's a long sleeve shirt. People have stated that this could potentially be an interaction with a dog, that the dog attacked him. Well, I want to know, how does that compare to any kind of insult that might have arisen from being struck by a vehicle? And that's quite easy to do. And I would want that clothing examined by somebody who is an expert.
Seeing my screen recording, I got the Temu alert that came down. Oh, I love Temu.
In this area, specifically somebody that would be trained in fabric examination, maybe even tool mark examination. And I want that damn dog examined as well, to try to understand.
I think the dog is gone.
The bite mark.
I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. That is unfortunate. But dependent upon how that dog was disposed of, it might even be, unless the dog was cremated, I think that would be worth the time to try to do an analysis on this. And that's going to be on the part of the defense.
And that's the thing, too. The dog was rehomed. The dog wasn't, euthanized or cremated. Like he said, that's the job of the defense. The clothing that he's wearing, the arms, I don't believe they swabbed the arms at all. So there's nothing that they can kind of test in comparison to his arms, I don't think. I guess we'll find out more at the trial. But as far as the clothing, I mean, that should also, if this is from a dog, that should also have, maybe hair if it's from the nails, saliva. But the shirt was, not logged, and it was held on to. And it's one of those things that's like, what is going on? Shay says the dog is in witness protection. It's just another thing, right? Like, the basement gets remodeled. The house is sold $50,000 less than asking price. And the dog is rehomed.
To make that happen. That's what they're saying. Then the dog needs to be conjured up at that point. Relative to these injuries that you're seeing, one of the things that we look for in pedestrian strikes with motor vehicle accidents is we look for something called bumper marks. Generally, you see them on the leading edge of a car. If somebody is standing erect and they're trying to cross the street, one of the things that you see is that they're struck, generally around the knees, that sort of thing. Ben, he doesn't have any insults, it sounds like, really inferior to his hips. Everything is kind of taking place up above that. It would almost give you potentially the indication that he was in an asymmetrical position relative to this vehicle, with this vehicle potentially towering over him.
Now, Johnny, I know you get snow in your area. No puncture marks looks like road rash drag marks. Now, that is, I believe, what the state is alleging. However, there was snow, like on, how is he coming in contact with the road when there's so much snow? It was snowing when she dropped him off, not heavily, but, she claims in her statements that there was snow. I guess you could go through layers of snow and hit the ground, right? I mean, I have a hard time, like the way that those marks are like so in unison. Some of them are very like symmetrical to each other. I don't know. I just don't know if I can see road rage or road rash. And not only that, you would think that there would maybe be gravel then in his wounds, part of the road embedded into his wounds. I haven't heard anything coming back about any of that. And is that shirt dirty? If you're dragged on the ground, that shirt should kind of also have road rash or something indicating that it was being dragged. The dog breed was German Shepherd.
As she's impacting him, I think that that's kind of significant. And the scratches on the arms, I'm fascinated by this because it's cold weather, Vin. As you have well stated, he would have had layered clothing on, Vin. So this is not something, these injuries, I know the head trauma requires a tremendous amount of force, but this could very well be consistent with almost a rollover type event where the vehicle is running over him to generate this through a layer of clothing. However, we are absent one key piece here. We don't know how he was clothed at this point. So that's going to be significant.
As people of lying about what they heard, the conspiracy allegation has to get larger and larger.
So Vinny is talking about the state's or the defense's theory that people are working together to hide the truth. They're all in cahoots with each other. They know people on the police force that are investigating this stuff. They themselves are cops themselves. They're all looking out for each other.
Let me put on the screen, Joseph. In the Commonwealth statement of the case, they say this, that Ms. Roberts stated that she believed the defendant was still intoxicated in the morning and had told her that she did not remember last night. Ms. Roberts.
So this is also hearsay. So if we're saying that these people are just working together to hide the truth, this is alleging that Ms. Roberts is, using her hearsay to kind of state that Karen was saying, I was so drunk, I don't even remember going to your sister's last night. So again, is that true or is that just part of the cover up?
Roberts reported the defendant as stating to her, quote, I was so drunk, I don't even remember going to your sister's last night, referring to Ms. McCabe's sister, the homeowner of 34 Fairview Road.
So this has, in court documents, the prosecution claims that Karen Read's blood alcohol level could have been between 0.13% and 0.29%, which is above the legal limit of 0.08. So then these next few clips I've included, and I believe that this is where things kind of take a turn for the weird, and more twists occur in the case. So remember, he is found January 29th in the morning. So this is saying February 4th, so 6 days later, I was working the 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. shift as the detective sergeant. At approximately 8:50 a.m., I was contacted by Lieutenant Gallagher, who advised me that Chief Berkowitz was at 34 Fairview Road and had possibly discovered more evidence. So 6 days later, Detective Taylor and I drove to the scene at 34 Fairview Road and met with Chief Berkowitz. He directed our attention to the area where O'Keefe had been discovered. I was able to observe a red broken piece of hard plastic, which appeared to have been broken off of a motor vehicle light fixture. The temperature overnight had reached 45 degrees with heavy rains, which melted away the snow from the storm on Saturday. This revealed much of the area that had originally been covered in deep snow. I photographed the broken plastic and it is now in the snow and will attach in this report. So again, key pieces of evidence linking Karen Read to this death is found much later by people who know the owner of the house. And, of course, they have a convenient reason why it was found later. The snow melted. So, the rains, it was 45 degrees. It uncovered more evidence. So the thing is, I'm having a hard time with is, if this took place, she's dropping him off, hits him. How did the snowplow not pick up that tail light and move it? You know what I mean? It's just found right where he's laying, right in the area that he was laying. It just happens to be there underneath all the snow that melted. I just feel like if it had taken place, the snowplow comes by, it would have taken pieces of that tail light and, dragged it or taken it away. Personally, I just find it hard to believe that, days later, it's found right in that area after the snow had kind of melted it. People are saying it was planted. Well, they're claiming, Jay, that it was uncovered by melted or rains that melt the snow away. So then it was discovered. Very convenient, right? So that was one piece of twist I was kind of trying to point out in these little clips.
Here's Karen Read's
Here's another twist.
Defense attorney showing another piece of evidence that they uncovered. Take a look.
The taillight was intact when she left Brian Albert's house. She came home, and this was Karen leaving to begin the frantic search for John O'Keefe. Now, I don't know that you can see it from the video that you have there, but there is no doubt that when that SUV comes into contact with what is John O'Keefe's vehicle parked in the driveway, you can see that rear tire move forward. It rotates, and you also see the light shatter from the taillight being broken.
So I'm going to pause it and rewind a little bit, and on mute, we'll watch that again. So, she leaves to go find him. She can't get a hold of him. She's backing. This is their own home ring camera or security camera. She accidentally hits his vehicle. So the defense has a clear explanation of why that taillight was broken. You can even see his car shift, like the lawyer said.
Rear tire move forward. It rotates, And you also see the light shatter from the taillight. What is John O'Keefe's vehicle parked in the driveway? You can see.
I'm going to pause it, play it, pause it, play it, because Mo wants to see the taillight. Now, I don't see the taillight in this area. Is it something that maybe fell off when she's out of scene? You know, hard to know, but this definitely raises doubt in my mind of how her taillight got broken. And you know, those taillights are, as you guys know, it's hard plastic. Very hard to just break. You know, they're saying 24 miles an hour she hit him and it broke that plastic. I mean, maybe. I've seen vehicles that hit deer at a greater speed and velocity that the taillights are completely intact still. Like they might be, you know, cracked and have like the deer's fur or hair in it, but I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't see the taillights like being broken. But I do think that this raises doubt that it was shattered from hitting John. I think that it could be something that maybe cracked from her hitting his vehicle. And then once they impound her vehicle and take it in, they take off the piece and plant it. I don't know. It's just, it raises doubt. Yeah, they made it seem like it cracked but didn't break. Right. It looks like it on the side to me. See, that's the thing is everyone's eyes are going to see something different. Again, you guys are more than welcome to slow this down and kind of examine it as much as you want. We're going to move on to the next piece of twists and turns.
And you also see the light shatter from the taillight being broken.
Why is Jennifer McCabe one of the parties that was inside the house that night, the sister-in-law of Brian Albert? Why was she Google searching? How long does it take for a human body to die in the cold? The Apple Cocoa Core data indicates, or the core time indicates exactly what time that Google search occurred. That time was at 2:27 and 40 seconds in the morning on January 29th. That's 3.5 hours before John O'Keefe's body was found.
How long to die in cold? Is this the smoking gun? Is this the smoking Google? We know how significant this is, and we know in the trial where Dr. Kinsey was the star witness, how specific the evidence was about where Alec Murdaugh was. I could like picture him walking around. It was such a great testimony in that case. What do you think here when the Apple Health is talking about 80 steps, up and down 3 flights of stairs? The defense is going to argue that he was going down in the basement. There's a lot of stuff happening down there during this after party. What are your thoughts?
Okay, well, I'll put it to you this way. Contrary to what we might think in the world in which we indwell nowadays, phones are, in fact, inanimate objects. They don't move on their own. So how are you going to put that phone into his hand necessarily? And I think that that can be argued, and any sharp attorney could make that argument as well. You know, how can it be stated that he was physically holding that phone as it moved about? And that's, you know, that's the big point of contention here. Yes, the phone is moving about, but how do you place it actually into this gentleman's hand to facilitate that movement? And I think that that's a question that could be asked before the jury, and it's certainly something that would be quite thought-provoking.
All right, so Brian Albert's German Shepherd Chloe. February 17th, you see it pictured there. Albert family registers ownership of the German Shepherd Chloe in 2019. John O'Keefe suffers this of course is being presented in court by the defense. John O'Keefe suffers animal scratch and puncture wounds unexplained by the prosecution, January 29th. May, defense begins investigation into injuries. Also in May 2022, Alberts informed Canton Animal Control Chloe was allegedly rehomed out of state. And then in orange, I don't know if you can see it, but it says the Commonwealth continues to refuse defense access to tissue samples obtained from O'Keefe's arms for DNA analysis. So they did do tissue samples. They're just withholding that from the defense at this time when this was in court. And that was 2022, it says present. So like Joseph Scott Morgan said, this would be very ideal wherever Chloe is. You know, we need those tissue samples, the DNA on it. We need to compare it to your dog, that dog, you know, Chloe. Let me see what else I have in my notes before I switch to Court TV with Melanie Little on it. Analysis of the complete forensic image of Jennifer McCabe's cell phone by computer forensics experts Richard Green establishes that Miss McCabe, the government's seminal witness, so the state's witness, Googled how long to die in cold at 2:27 a.m. on January 29th, 2022, exactly 2 hours after O'Keefe was last seen walking towards Albert's home. And then it says, Jennifer McCabe explicitly told law enforcement that she did not think much of O'Keefe's failure to enter the residence that night and assumed that O'Keefe and Miss Reed simply decided to go home. It also says at 6:23 a.m., so remember, he's found around 6, Jennifer McCabe makes an outgoing call to her brother-in-law, Brian Albert, which he doesn't answer. Remember, Brian is the owner of the house, the boxer, the other cop, the guy who didn't really know John that well, former Gulf War veteran. Then subsequently deletes the record of that call. Right? So then Jennifer deletes her communications with Brian Alberts and removed a screenshot of his contact information. A lot of deleting by somebody who, you know, had nothing to do with anything, right? All right. So those were the clips that I put together, a little collection from Court TV segments and, you know, Google images regarding this case. I hope you guys like that. I really want to play Melanie on Court TV. Again, this was a couple months ago, 3 months ago. I adore her. I definitely advise you guys to check out her channel and the live stream that she did with the canine expert who has come forward saying those look like, you know, bite marks to me from a dog. I just think she did a great job here on Court TV. You want to watch it. Now, Jennifer Coffindoffer is on this episode as well. Extremely rude. You know, I liked Jennifer at first when she came onto the scene during the Brian Laundrie case and Gabby Petito. And then she said something that she said before Brian Laundrie was found that he was too narcissistic to end his own life and that the cops would end up finding him and arresting him. Well, come to find out her prediction of all of that was wrong, right? So then I started thinking, like, what does this lady really know? Apparently, like, yes, she is a former FBI agent, but she was only somebody who instructed like guns, like shooting, like gun protocols and stuff. Like she's never investigated a murder in her career ever. So just want to throw that out there.
In Boston, Massachusetts, criminal defense attorney and author of the books Super Predators and Law and the Tough on Crime Myth, Peter Ellikin is with us. And down in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida, retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindoffer. Great to have everyone here. All right, Melanie, I'll begin with you. So is the defense really predicated on the fact that Trooper Proctor, who was at a wedding and his family is close with the Alberts, is literally planting evidence to literally frame Karen Read for murder? Is that what the defense is saying here, Melanie?
I think that's exactly what they're saying, and they're also saying that there are a lot of questions of fact here. You know, if Trooper Proctor, who was the lead investigator,
I hate to interrupt you. I just want to preface our entire conversation tonight. I'm not concerned about reasonable doubt. Okay, reasonable doubt. I want to know about the truth tonight, because the defense is saying John O'Keefe was murdered by people in that house, and the prosecution is saying he was murdered by Karen Read. So I want to look at these as two cases and evaluate what's going on here. Let's begin with the defense case. So Melanie, go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted you. But I understand this is a case that's going to be tough with reasonable doubt. But I want to get to the truth tonight. So what do you see in terms of these relationships? Is that enough? Like someone would do this? Frame this woman?
Well,
and like I said, this whole episode was called Who's Who in the Karen Read case. And Melanie knows so much about these people involved. There's a lot of people. So when you jump down this rabbit hole, it's like, okay, so who is connected to who? Finding out that the main people that were there that night are connected to the people who did the investigation, huge red flag. And she's about to break it down for us. And I just paused it because I agree with what you're saying, Jay. I think even if she's acquitted, the owner of the home won't be charged. Right. She's acquitted, they're not going to be like, okay, so then who did this? We're going to investigate it. Although apparently the feds have gotten involved. So hard for two people to keep secrets, let alone this many people. I don't know. See, that's the thing, is like she kind of lays it out like these people are so connected that, you know, they're at each other's weddings. They're obviously all cops. There's a camaraderie and you know, sister-in-law of the guy who owns the house. I mean, there's stuff that I think it definitely, as much as most conspiracies say, like, oh yeah, how are you going to convince that all these people just keep their mouth shut? I feel like this is one of those cases that is so unique that, to me and many others who have already looked into all this, it's very plausible. And remember, she's an attorney. She's highly educated, smart woman. Definitely have a lot of respect for her. She kind of lays it out in a way that, like, I definitely could see what she's saying.
I can't see why anybody would find it so beyond the pale that it could never actually happen. I mean, if it is true that Michael Proctor, who's the lead investigator on this case, has close ties to the Albert family and to the McCabe family, everyone inside that house was a relative except for one person. So if the defense can show that there are close second family type ties between everyone in that house and the lead investigator on this case, that could be something that definitely could lead to reasonable doubt. I know you don't want to go there, but
yeah,
that's exactly
again, I'm not concerned about the reasonable doubt tonight. Not tonight. When we get to the trial, I'll get to it. I'm trying to figure out the truth here, Peter, because I've got Alan Jackson, a former prosecutor who was amazing out in California, jumping up and down literally on the courtroom steps, telling us that the prosecution has it all wrong. The DA has this all wrong, and that it's the police who are responsible here.
Well, yeah, first of all, I'd say that there was such a conflict of interest here. Even the appearance of bias, I don't know why Trooper Proctor was in charge of this investigation. There's just too many times we saw that we just.
Well, the defense is saying he's in charge because he's framing Karen Read. That's why. He's not going to give up the lead on this because he's got to save, you know, his friend and his friend's son and whoever else they're going to allege did this, and frame somebody for this.
Yeah, and I guess that's. I think we've all been seeing enough cases over the years that it's not absolutely beyond the pale that some police officer may not be truthful. So
wait, there's a difference, though. This is a difference between not being truthful, forgetting something, and literally taking evidence and putting it somewhere so you can frame someone for murder, take away their liberty, and put them in jail for the rest of their life. This is different than just making a mistake.
Do that to protect a friend, though, or your long-term friends with the family? We saw it goes way, way back, and his mother is saying that the Alberts are a second family to her, and we have one of the family members, Jennifer McCabe, going to his house, who goes to a state trooper's personal home to go chat with them, and it is not even reported in any paperwork. So with those kinds of biased ties, would there be a motive? Could anybody do that to protect their friends, to protect people you've known for years? And that's why when the DA here has said that it's a lie if you see any connection between him and the family, the facts just don't bear that out.
Yeah, that was baffling. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's take a listen to Alan Jackson today talking about that meeting on September 25th of last year.
On September 25th, 2023, that one of those family members, Jennifer McCabe, who's the subject of great interest in this case and a primary person of interest in this case, is invited to Trooper Proctor's personal home for some sort of off-the-books meeting. They've now admitted that Jennifer McCabe, a central character in the middle of this investigation, in the middle of this crime, was secretly meeting and or socializing with the lead investigator and or his wife in the living room of their home. And that, Your Honor, is a problem.
Okay, Jennifer, let me ask you, should we be concerned, when I say we, the public, that the DA comes out and says there's no relationship with the family here? Proctor had nothing to do with what was going on that day, and it seems that that's not necessarily true. And then McCabe going to Proctor's house, I mean, should there be some concern here?
I think it's very important to truly understand the relationship. Brian Albert, who lived in the house where this incident occurred out in the front, his brother's wife's sister was friends with Proctor's sister. Okay, that's how far removed. I just hope your audience, the
One more
attorneys
time,
that are
one more
present-
time, one more time.
Okay.
We'll do it
Brian
together.
Brother's wife's sister was friends with Proctor's sister. Okay, that's how far removed. In other words, I could tell you, I have no idea who my sister-in-law's sister's friends are. I mean, there's no way. I couldn't tell you one of them. I don't even know my sister-in-law's friends. And we're very close. So my point is, this is how far removed it is. And then it's, again, Proctor's sister. Detective Proctor, I'm sorry, Trooper Proctor and Brian Albert, the home again, they had never even met each other. The pictures you're showing are his brother's family, And again, that's through this, removed relationship. So I think it's very important to understand that just because you have a Proctor there and an Albert there, they're not the same family unit. Second of all, everybody's forgetting about Brian Higgins. That chart, you're missing the ATF agent that was there. And that's very important too. So to have this conspiracy work, we have to have a Boston police officer, Canton Police, EMS, an ATF agent, the medical examiner's office, the district attorney, and the state police all combined to do this huge conspiracy against who? Nothing against Karen Read, but who is Karen Read? Karen Read is no one special other than she was dating in a relationship that was falling apart, the victim deceased.
Okay, everyone stay where you are. We've got to hit a quick break. When we come back, much more. Don't go anywhere.
Coming soon to Court TV.
These murders have shaken.
The next morning, broken taillight door. Police collected a police officer to Fairview Road in Canton and at this house. This house was owned by Brian and Nicole Albert. At the time, Brian was a good friend of theirs and also a police officer. Now, what happens next is what this case is all about. Prosecutors say that the couple actually got into a fight. And when O'Keefe exited.
Right, Jesse. And what do you know? A former FBI agent, Coffendorfer, is siding with the police officers, but you know, she's not biased or anything.
The car, Karen Read backed over him, leaving him to die in the curb here in front of this house during the snowstorm. Police collected a lot of evidence at the scene, including what appeared to be a broken cocktail glass with blood around it, and also a broken taillight.
Another thing too, so the state is saying once again that this was done on purpose. They got in a fight. So she's just going to hit somebody in front of a cop's house and think she's going to get away with it. Now that's where they would claim, well, she was impaired and you do things when you're drunk that you normally wouldn't do. I still don't buy it. I still don't buy that she would, you know, purposely hit him in front of a cop's residence with a whole bunch of cops inside and then just take off.
Now, Reed says when she pulled up to the house here, she wanted to know if the couple was really invited. It was late at night. So she watched John O'Keefe walk up to the front door over there. And when he didn't return to the car and didn't return her phone call, that's when she said she went to his house and fell asleep. The next morning, Karen Read hasn't heard from John. So she starts making phone calls. And then she comes back here to the last place she says that she saw him, over at this house on Fairview. And that's when he's discovered, lying in the snow dead. Now, Reed's defense says a very different story. They say that John was actually beaten up in the basement of this house and attacked by the family dog. They claim that he was dragged outside and left in the snow to die. Now, being here on Fairview Road in Canton, a few things come to mind. Why didn't someone see anything? Because the neighborhood, it's fairly dense. The houses are close together. But you have to keep in mind that this happened in January, in the middle of the night, and it was also a snowstorm, whiteout conditions. Now, another key for the defense is the snowplow driver who said that he cleared Fairview Road here the morning that John O'Keefe was found dead. He claims that he didn't see a body in the road or near the road.
Okay, all my guests back with us, Melanie Little, Peter Ellikin, and Jennifer Koffendorfer. Melanie, which case is easier to prove?
And I still go back to the whole, you know, the plow guy's eyewitness report is vital because not only did he not see John in the road or near the road, but that tail light being found right near where John's body was. You know, this plow, not only do the plows go by once, but during storms, I mean, they're going by multiple times. So how is it that that tail light never got dragged down the street? Just happened to be found right in that spot? That just, to me, doesn't really make sense.
That he was murdered in the house or that he was murdered by Karen Read?
I have so many.
Key for the defense is the snowplow driver who said that he cleared.
I have so many questions. I think it's easier to prove that he was murdered in the house.
Tell me
why. In
why.
my opinion. I mean, where's the dog? Where's the dog? I saw the photos of John Proctor's right arm that were taken at his autopsy. They have what clearly looks to me to be like animal scratches on them. All of a sudden, the family dog of 7 years, they had a German Shepherd in the house. The family dog is gone. They rehomed the dog. The dog is missing. The dog's DNA cannot be tested to see if those were, in fact, animal scratches. You know, there's a cocktail glass allegedly on the lawn. They never searched the inside of the house. Why did they never go inside the house to see if they had those type of glasses inside the house? Why was the basement flooring ripped up? The house was sold. Why?
So just think about that. No luminol was ever, you know, conducted in that house. What if John's blood was in that house? You know, we will never know. We will never know.
Why did this police officer who owned the house and his wife never come out of their house to look at the scene when there is a dead police officer on their lawn? I have so many questions. And I think at the end of the day, the jury is going to have to decide the facts. And if we have so many questions from looking at these facts, I think a jury is going to have a lot of questions too.
Jennifer, which case is easier to prove?
Without it.
Here we go. She's going off the script she was given by the police, I think.
I doubt the case that he was hit by Karen Read. She had the motive. These are not dog scratch.
She had the motive with this alleged fight, even though we looked at the CCTV footage of them all lovey-dovey on camera at the bar. So again, there are voicemails where Karen is saying some, mean things to him. But does that mean that she has motive to kill him? And if she just struck him with her own vehicle on purpose, why would she be leaving him voicemails that obviously sound incriminating against her?
That has been said by two medical examiners, separate medical examiners that examined him. Also, there were samples sent to a lab in California to test for non-human or canine DNA. Negative. So I find it so interesting that people want to look at a picture and all of a sudden they're medical examiners.
And this part here really annoyed me with her because she just didn't have to be so rude. Like, she's clearly saying it as like a jab towards Melanie's opinion and theory. So, all of a sudden people look at these pictures and they're suddenly medical examiners. How many times have you guys seen a tweet or something that Jennifer Coffendorfer has stated as an opinion that is outside her realm of expertise? So many times. And how many times have you guys seen her be wrong about things? Like, I gave you that one example about Brian Laundrie. He is too narcissistic to end his own life. We're going to find him, blah, blah. Actually, no, you were wrong.
They're doctors with PhDs, and they can say these are dog scratches. Second to the point there, the Brian Albert, they sold their house months and months after that. Also, they had a leak downstairs in the basement that resulted in quite a lot of damage, and that's why the flooring was replaced. As far as the dog, Chloe got into a fight with another dog in that neighborhood. And during that fight, one of the neighbors went to separate the two dogs and was scratched or bitten. And it was decided amongst the people that they would go ahead and rehome the dog as opposed to making an even larger deal out of it.
And isn't it just, to me, it's so funny how like she thinks that she's like proven a point there. Like, Chloe, the dog, had nothing to do with it. And then she kind of almost says something that kind of backs up the defense's theory that the dog could have been aggressive. The dog attacked somebody. The dog attacked another animal. It sounds like Chloe was an aggressive type dog. So the way that she's like trying to argue it, like, no, that's preposterous, like that's just, it couldn't have happened. And she attacked another dog and then somebody got attacked also. It's like you're almost admitting that this dog definitely was aggressive and maybe could have had something to do with those injuries on the arm. So it's just like funny the way that she thinks that she's proven her point right now. But to me, all I heard from it was validation that that dog absolutely could have attacked somebody like John, who didn't know that well. This is the first time John was at that house ever. It's just very odd, and I haven't seen anything. Again, this is only my first deep dive. There's a lot more that we can look up and go through. Again, this trial is coming up. So this won't be our only live stream on this case, but I haven't seen anything that says that, swabs and DNA analysis came back negative as far as, canine being linked to his injuries. But I'd be very, very interested in seeing that, because if that's the case, then fine. We'll let go of this dog theory, but I still think it's possible that like maybe there was a sharp object in some fight that took place, and that's what caused those lacerations on his arms. I just don't see it being from an SUV being in reverse and striking him. I don't know. It's hard for me to picture those from the road incident.
So there are very logical explanations, but these are the types of innuendos that have been completely blown up.
So yeah, this case is very divided. It's very, very right, Sherry. It could have been from glass. It's very heated on everyone's opinions and where they stand. I'm going into this trial undecided. I know that there's people who are very, very, pro defense or pro prosecution, very much already decided in Karen's guilt or innocence. I'm not one of those people. So we're going to just go through the evidence in the trial as it's presented, go through the facts, listen to the experts, and come up with a determination ourselves. And then obviously that the people who are really going to matter is the jury. So what will 12 jurors conclude with everything? It's going to be very interesting to see. This is going to be a very, very heated trial. So I hope you guys join me again for another deep dive into all this. If you have anything to add, like links or sources where I can find certain things that I kind of questioned, please let me know in the comment section below. And yeah, I just appreciate you guys being here. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so. And thank you everyone who donated. And we'll talk very soon. So Linda says I'm 100% pro defense. And that's, I like everybody's opinions. I appreciate my chat being kind of mixed opinions. So I think people know that I'm open-minded and, we can just go through things rationally here and weigh out the facts as they come. So it's going to be interesting, guys. So this week, I plan on going live Thursday and Friday. I'm not sure on what cases, but thank you guys so much for being here. And we'll talk very soon. And thanks everyone who participated in the chat. I really appreciate you guys. And I hope you guys have a good night and goodbye.